But we begin tonight with Donald Trump's preoccupation with crowd size, which continued in an unhinged Bronx rally where he boasted huge crowds of 25,000 plus. So take a look. Is that what you see here? 25,000 people? Well, based on the police department, as well as math, the laws of physics, and the existence of eyeballs, you can see that Trump, once again, is lying. It's the lie that launched 1,000 memes, with folks comparing this paltry scene with what actually constitutes a crowd of 25,000. Like the crowd Andrea Bocelli drew at the Barclays Center, or this rally, but for Barack Obama in Iowa. Ouch, that's gotta hurt. Because if anything triggers Donald Trump, it's the Obama factor. Remember back in 2017 on that awful day for American history when Trump was inaugurated president? He predicted huge crowds for his ceremony, bigger than Obama's. But then these photos famously showed a view of the crowd on the National Mall at the inaugurations of Obama on the left and Trump on the right. Both images were shot shortly before noon from the top of the Washington Monument. The lies continue to this day. Just a couple of weeks ago, a so-called raucous beachfront rally in New Jersey drew between 80 and 100,000 people, according to Wildwood officials. But then those same Republican officials later said that the number reflected not really how many people were at the rally per se, but rather it was a number of people, quote, in our town. Make it make sense, or rather don't. We know the absurdity is the point. This is a thing with Donald Trump, an overinflated sense of self and an orchestrated lie to make him seem bigger, better, more popular, admired, and well-received than he actually is. You know who else does that? Dictators, knowing people will just believe any narrative that they are fed. And we know this about Donald Trump. But this is also about the media taking the bait, with reports on Trump's crowd size snatching all the headlines. This is a call for some good old-fashioned shoe leather reporting. Was anyone at this rally asked if they're actually from the Bronx? Because remember, the New York City borough of the Bronx boasts a majority of Black, Latino, and blue voters. Yet that crowd, I'm just saying, it looked awfully white. The strategy is to convince America that Black and brown folks are the Americans who are really, really into Trump. But as Trump was lying on stage, this is what actual New Yorkers were saying on the ground.
Nobody who is authentically from the Bronx is willing to co-sign hatred and xenophobia and misogyny and all of the things that this guy represents.
Let Donald Trump know that he is not welcome in the Bronx.
Do you think there's any people you know in the Bronx or friends that would consider voting for him?
No, I don't know anyone that consider voting for him.
Doesn't quite fit Trump's narrative, does it? And think about it. If Trump has so many supporters in New York, why aren't they showing up in droves to support him at his trial, where the courthouse is literally just a subway ride away? This is Tuesday. One supporter. Usually there are none. Trust me, I've been there. And to top off this tomfoolery, Trump floated Florida Congressman Byron Donalds as a potential vice presidential pick. Donalds, who backed Trump's lie that Biden authorized the feds to take him out, that guy, the one Black guy that Republicans love to roll out as fake proof that Black people, the Blacks, are just MAGA. They're MAGA. It's a joke, and just as credible as when they pretended they were going to make that guy Speaker of the House, because they weren't going to do that either. Joining me now is Michael Steele, former RNC chair and co-host of The Weekend on MSNBC. Michael Tomasky, editor of The New Republic. And Clay Cane, host of The Clay Cane Show on Sirius XM and author of the New York Times best-selling book, The Grift. We were on the list the same time.
We were.
Let's talk about this, because, look, this particularly bothered me because my godmother, my Jamaican godmother, lived in the Bronx. That is where I lived after college. You know, I'm an orphan, so after that, I went and lived with my godmother. So I lived in the South Bronx. I know what the South Bronx is like. I know what the South Bronx people are like. That ain't it, what they were trying to show. They're trying to use this location and this little crowd, which they inflated, to try to make it look like it's Black and brown people that are Donald Trump's base. Does it irritate you as much as it does me?
I've been in the New York City area for almost 25 years, and talk about pandering and lies. To quote Aretha Franklin, lies, lies, and more lies. I mean, he's in the South Bronx, but the BX is not there with him. There was local news reports talking about that people just were traveling there from Pennsylvania, Tennessee, so on. And it's silly. And then I think about to show us how he cares about Black and brown voters, he brought out two rappers who have been accused of murder. That's what he thinks of us. And this year marks 35 years since he accused 5 black men of being rapists in Central Park and called for their execution.
That's right.
This marks 35 years since he pulled out that ad in the New York Times.
And Yusuf Salaam, who is now a city councilman, represents a district not far from there. So he thought that those kids were garbage. He wanted them dead. That is the guy who, even anybody black like Byron Donalds, who, by the way, is from Brooklyn. He's from East Flatbush, Brooklyn, like me. His family is Caribbean American, like mine. He knows better than this. I grew up around the time of the Central Park Five. I know what Donald Trump is. That's why I never even watched The Apprentice. Anybody black that knows anything about Donald Trump thinks the way I do about him. That's why he got, 10% in New York or 20% when he ran here. New Yorkers don't like him.
Absolutely. And we've been telling, when he was running for office, we were saying, trust New Yorkers, tell New Yorkers.
Come on, we try to tell you.
And Byron Donalds, why isn't this brother in D.C. getting work done? Why isn't he in Florida in his actual district?
Go back to your district, and you're not going to be vice president, Byron. Same way he pretended they were going to make me speaker. He was on our show trying to convince us of that. They rubbed his head. Don't ever let people rub you in your head, Byron. That's my advice to you. Chef G, Michael Steele, because I know you're a hip-hop fan, as I am. Chef G and Sleepy Hallow. I'd never heard of them. The only way I know of them, Michael, is that now I am aware that they were both accused of murder in a 140-count indictment. So Donald Trump's pitch to us is gold sneakers and 2 rappers who were accused of murder. That is what he thinks of black people. As somebody, Michael Steele, who tried to expand the ranks of black support in the Republican Party, what do you think of that?
Well, it's an embarrassing affront to all the work and effort that African Americans are trying to create within their community and trying to get people to pay attention to the young African American boys and girls who are working their way through schools, who just graduated from HBCUs at this year and from major institutions to set a course for themselves of the American dream. So as a presidential candidate, you want to remind us that we're nothing more than rappers with 140 felony counts against them, including murder. Oh, by the way, we're going to save you on your cigarettes because we know you like smoking those cigarettes and wearing those sneakers. It's all been a lie. It's all been portrayed in a way, and this is the part that I find the most offensive, when members of our own community promote this crap.
Come on.
And don't speak honestly to it, Byron. That is a problem. So,
Correct.
You might as well just stand on that stage instead of throwing out MAGA hats, just throw out a pair of gold lame sneakers, because that's essentially what it is.
Yeah.
And so if that's all you can bring to us, then stay your ass home.
Hello.
We don't need it.
Come on. He literally threw paper towels at Puerto Ricans. That was his pitch to Hispanics. And you have Latinos like Marco Rubio, who knows better, who used to be a commentator on Univision, who knows better, that says that's okay with him. He's now okay with them locking up people like him and putting them in camps. You can always find someone from the community who's willing to Clarence Thomas it out and turn against his own people. Clarence Thomas, who thinks Brown v. Board was apparently overly decided and went too far, that guy. And so you have a baby version of him in Byron Donalds. It's so embarrassing. But I do want to talk about...
Real quick, yeah. Joy, how does Clarence Thomas think he gets an education if Brown v. Board of Education is still in place?
Some goodly white person, a goodly white billionaire will help him. I mean, I think he really does believe in the largesse of a goodly white rich person, and that will always save him. So he thinks he's fine as long as there's a goodly white billionaire. He doesn't care about anyone else. I mean, I got to bring Michael Tomasky in here, because you wrote a really good, there's a great series in the New Republic, which I hope you guys will all check it out. Because the other piece of this, Michael, is the media. The media has got to stand in the way of fascism here. I know they don't want to take a side, but here's a piece from your series. Your series, it was What American Fascism Would Look Like. Talk about the media's responsibility here, Michael, in terms of the way we talk about this stuff. In terms of the way we talk about things like, did he get a massive record crowd of black and brown people in the Bronx?
Yeah, we're way past the time, Joy, when we can do this side and that side kind of journalism when it relates to Donald Trump, or when the kind of journalism that says, well, this side says this and that side says that, and who knows, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. That's a traditional approach to objective journalism. We can't have that. Now, I'm not saying that the media should be shilling for Joe Biden or apologizing for Joe Biden or trying to see to it that Joe Biden wins the election. No, absolutely not. However, the media does have to be standing for the values of democracy and the values of the republic that we live in and that we've been trying to perfect for 250 years, and against values that would attack that. Donald Trump very clearly is out to attack those values. He tells us that in one form or another every week. You know, we were preparing that issue of the New Republic, and you know, I was wondering if, you know, maybe is this going a little far? But then he comes out with that Time Magazine interview, and I said, well, no. This Time Magazine interview he did a month ago validates every single word we're writing in this package of stories. And yeah, the media has to just be more blunt and say, look, this man says he is going to do this. He says he's going to put, you know, try to deport and round up millions and millions of people. What would that look like? Yeah. We need long investigative series, Joy, on what that would look like, what that would do to families, as Jamel Bowie wrote in his excellent column today in the Times, families who are, you know, tax-paying people. You know, it's sad.
Do you know what we're here for? You know we're here about AG.
I don't think you know what you're here for.
Well, you the one talking about.
I think your fake eyelashes are messing up.
No, ain't nothing.
Hold on.
Listen.
Order, Mr. Chairman.
That's beneath even you.
Order of your committee.
I'm just curious, just to better understand your ruling. If someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body, that would not be engaging in personalities, correct?
What now?
What now? It's Friday, and this is the point in the program where we normally would play our favorite game, Who Won the Week? But since this is a special 2-hour edition of The ReidOut, we figured we'd do something a little different. Also, this week's winner was obvious and follows a brutal house bully takedown that went viral. It was even trademarked and is going to be rolled out as part of a Crockett Clapback collection. That back and forth also flooding the internet with a veritable denouement, a veritable deluge, I should say. A deluge is the word I'm looking for, of musical renditions, including this one.
She got a bleach blonde, bad little butch body. She got a bleach blonde, bad little butch body.
Joining us now is the winner of the week, Representative Jasmine Crockett of Texas. And by the way, Sora, that's not even my favorite one. My favorite one is King Wallonia, you know, the girl group version of it. I mean, when I tell you, let me ask you this, because a lot of people listen to that and they said, this lady clearly had a plan ready. When did you think of this? Did it just pop into your head because you just were, the letter of the day was B? What's happening?
Definitely B was stuck in my head, but I needed to use it appropriately. Listen, I did not have this locked and loaded. You know, after the chairman decided he was going to rule that way, in the midst of me trying to get his attention so that I could do a parliamentary inquiry, I looked over at her and I started from her head to her toe. So that's why I started with bleach blonde. My granny used to have a saying. She used to say that people were bad built. Y'all know how old black women can get sometimes. They just say what they say. And so that was kind of an ode to my granny. And then obviously,
it went viral. I mean, the thing is, it definitely had black grandma vibes, which is why I think you're so young to have that black grandma. But you know, the thing I think the reason it resonated, honestly, to be serious, is that Marjorie Taylor Greene is a bully. She is not a legislator. She has not created anything, and she has not created anything positive in Congress other than bullying people. And she started out bullying you in a way that was clearly racialized, talking about your lashes. I read that as a racialized attack. And she's been doing this. She did it to AOC. She's done it to so many, and AOC did come to your defense. What is it like having to be in a legislative body, which is supposed to be a prestigious institution, with someone like her?
Yeah, it's completely unproductive. But listen, you know, she is showing the world who she is, and the fact that the Republicans continue to give her cover, it tells you who they are as well. Now, they want to disassociate themselves from her, but in reality, when you don't check her, you basically are complicit in the things that she does. And it's my understanding she's the 5th highest fundraising person, and the 4 that are higher than her are all members of leadership. So I don't know if she shares her money because that's what we're supposed to do or not. But I think that for some of them, they say, you know what, we're able to get some money and we're also able to keep Trump off our backs. So they just let it go. I will tell you that I've had thumbs up, winks, and comments from the other side. Some I like your lashes. Like, listen, nobody's coming for her defense, and they're all patting me on my back. So, yeah.
Let me play another moment that went viral for you, and this one was very poignant. Take a look.
It did not seem as if my colleague understood that someone can be diverse and qualified. And it is why you have people like me that get very frustrated, not just in the halls of Congress, but in general in this country. There are those that would make some people believe that because I happen to be Black and or a woman, that somehow, even though I can rattle off all the qualifications in the world, my Blackness makes me unqualified.
I think one of the reasons that you have become so beloved by so many people, even if they're not political, is that you use your platform to do things like that. It's not just the funny viral moments of you taking down a bully. It's you really seeing Black women who are in public spaces and who are facing what you're facing, all the accomplishments being thrown away. But you also went viral this week for pointing out that SNAP benefits, most of those go to rural communities, not Black people. Like, you're using your platform very well. What is your purpose and what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to be your big accomplishment?
I want people to truly feel like they're represented. We're supposed to live in a representative government. For far too long, representative government in this country has meant old white men. And there are so many people that felt like their stories, their experiences, that they were left out of the conversation. And I don't believe that I get the privilege of sitting at this table and not amplifying the struggles that we're experiencing. Yeah. And the reality is that I sit in Congress, yet for whatever reason, I experience these as well. It doesn't matter what level you attain. Sometimes there are those that are always going to pretend as if you are lesser than simply because you are a woman or that you are a person of color.
Amen. And I want to acknowledge that this is the 2-year anniversary of the Uvalde slayings in your state of Texas, and we want to give love to all of the families there in Texas. And thank you, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. We see you because we know that you see us. We appreciate you, sis. You won the week.